right? And now they're trying to tell the world you can't buy oil from Iran. Why? Well, because they said so. Because Iran is bad. Iran is bad, right? Buy your oil from Saudi Arabia. They're good. They're good folks, right? Right? Now, where were the 9/11 hijackers from? What country were they from? What country has been pouring weapons and funding into the extremist groups in Syria? What country has been spreading Wahhabi ideology, the ideology of Al Qaeda, the ideology of ISIS? What country has been sponsoring Wahhabi ideology all over the world? What country has been sponsoring the Deobandis in India, right? What country just beheaded 37 people in a single day? Public executions. 37 people, almost all of them Shia Muslims, mind you, had their heads cut off, right? Barbaric. So the kind of executions people stopped doing 700, 800 years ago. Public beheadings in Saudi Arabia, 37 of them. And then one of the individuals, after they beheaded them, they then crucified their body and left it on display. I mean, this is who we're supposed to buy oil from. But the Iranians, right, can't buy their oil, right? The world, they're telling us the Iranians are bad, can't buy their oil. But these people that have ties to 9/11, these people that have ties to Al Qaeda, these people that have been spreading Wahhabi jihadist ideology all over the world, these people that just cut 37 people's heads off in public and then crucified somebody's body afterwards, those folks are civilized. They're Trump's friends. Trump goes and he dances with them, and it's fun, and they're great, and they have this glow-in-the-dark globe to fight terrorism, and it's so much fun. The Saudis, oh, they're great. They got the New Kingdom magazine. If you go to any newsstand, you can buy the New Kingdom, a magazine all about how Saudi Arabia, but, Saudi Arabia, they just let women drive, right? Women have been driving in Iran for decades. But they just let women drive in Saudi Arabia. So therefore, the Saudis, those are upstanding folks, right? But the Iranians, terrorists, bad. This is ridiculous, right? I mean, this is just ridiculous. Even if every extreme thing they said against Iran was true, there's no way anyone could look at Saudi Arabia and say that they're better than Iran. Iran has elections. In Iran they have this thing called a constitution, and people get to vote. Right? Saudi Arabia, they have a king, a monarch, and he has absolute power. And everyone in the country is a subject, not even a citizen, but a subject of the king. They are property, right? Saudi Arabia, there was a reporter for the Washington Post that you should all know about, Jamal Khashoggi, and he went to the Saudi embassy in Turkey, and they cut him into a bunch of pieces, right? They talk about Prince Bonesaw, the Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman. I mean, this is beyond me, right? So Iran, bad. Saudi Arabia, good. How does anyone justify that position? Seriously. I mean, even if you believed everything, if you were one of those people who believed every single anti-Iranian slander, how in the world could you look at Saudi Arabia and look at what everyone knows about Saudi Arabia, like women just getting the right to drive, just like public beheadings, like torture, about autocracy. I mean, Saudi Arabia is one of the most reactionary countries in the world, in terms of their politics, right? The House of Saud that was selected by the British, basically, by the British and the United States to be the de facto rulers. The Ottomans were pushed out, and the House of Saud was selected by the Western bankers and oil corporations to be the de facto rulers and kind of almost be the vassals of that area. The House of Saud, with their Wahhabi ideology, how in the world can they be permissible and okay, despite their flaws, but Iran is bad? That's beyond me. It is beyond me. I went to church on Sunday morning in Iran. It was great. Iran, went to church on Sunday morning. Armenian Christians inside of this church facility. Women didn't have to wear their headscarves. They allowed communion wine. In Saudi Arabia, people get arrested for owning Bibles. Right? If you are a normal Saudi, if you're not in one of these little, they have these areas with like walls around them in Saudi Arabia where you're allowed to act like a Westerner. But if you're just a regular Saudi, you can be arrested for owning a Bible. Right? Saudi Arabia is a brutal autocracy. And the Shia, the Shia, they are only allowed to have jobs in manual labor. Their right to hold routine religious services is generally, suppressed. They're oil workers, and they're Saudi citizens. But they're treated horrendously. They executed so many of their leaders, people who just speak up. They've cut people's heads off for posting on Facebook, or organizing a protest, or insulting the king, or disrespecting the king, or sorcery. It's ridiculous. It is beyond me. And Jacob Maxey correctly points out foreign slaves, and that's the reality. Saudi Arabia is a society with slavery. These guest workers have no rights whatsoever. They are basically slaves in Saudi Arabia, right? They have no right to unionize, no right to strike, no right to make any demands, routinely, just killed without any fair representation in court. These guest workers from Bangladesh, from the Philippines, these folks in Saudi Arabia, from North Africa, a lot of them, that's a big percentage of the population, a very big number of the population in Saudi Arabia are literal slaves. Saudi Arabia is a modern-day slave plantation brought to you by ExxonMobil, BP, Chevron, and Shell Oil, right? It is Wall Street and London's oil slave plantation, headed by King Mohammed bin Salman, right? This is intense, folks. King Salman. This is beyond me. It's beyond me how we in our minds, there's all this condemnation of Iran, and there are issues in Iran. I've been to Iran, and I had very positive experiences in Iran, but, the Iranian people, the Iranians are the first to tell you they've got issues with human rights. There are issues in Iran that need to be corrected. There are things about Iranian society that need to be fixed. They need to move ahead. They want to move ahead with reform. However, Saudi Arabia, their idea of reform is they let women vote, or they let women drive cars finally. Goodness gracious.